Finally home, Veronica shut the front door, placed the groceries on the nightstand, and relished the peaceful silence that enveloped her. Returning to an empty apartment after work was a rare treat, allowing her to indulge in a few hours of self-care. Her daughter Varia and her grandmother had jetted off to Turkey for a well-deserved vacation just 2 days ago. Let them bask in the sunlight while the winter chill settled in at home. Meanwhile, her husband had headed straight to his parents' place after work and planned to stay the night there. Veronica knew how to savor these precious moments of solitude, transforming them into a mini holiday. No more diets. She had bought cheese slices, salted redfish, grapes, berries, and a good bottle of wine. And of course, a bucket of pistachio ice cream. Nika laid out the food on the table, pondering the dilemma of whether to prepare a light dinner or simply boil a bag of king prawns and pair it with a glass of light beer, savoring the food of the gods. Her deep contemplation was interrupted by a phone call. Glancing at the screen, Nika frowned. When would Karina realize that her constant pestering was wearing thin on everyone? "Hey there, am I interrupting something?" Karina didn't even wait for a response. "Listen, I wanted to ask if Lietka has found someone after the divorce." "Karina, it's only been 2 months since her divorce, and you're already fishing for gossip." Veronica snapped sharply at the nosy nurse. "Oh, I see. Well, I hope you and Borka are doing well. At least," Karina's voice now carried a hint of sympathy. "I'm sorry, Karina." Nika grinned. "I just got home from work. I'm tired." Of course, Karina's voice became ingratiating. "Thank God you're doing well. Because yesterday I saw them together, I couldn't sleep all night." Nika didn't understand. "Who did you see?" "Your Boris and Lyudmila," Karina explained. "You know that Ludka and I work in the same building, but in different offices. Yesterday I was going to have lunch in a cafeteria. I went out, and ahead Ludka goes. I called out to her, but she didn't even hear me. She galloped to the car. She sat down on the seat and wham! That's all they saw." Confused, Nika asked, "What's Boris got to do with this?" Karina explained, "So the car is yours." I recognized it at once. The color was conspicuous, plum, and as soon as I saw Boris behind the wheel, I immediately realized that something wrong was going on. "Well, first of all, Boris, not Borka," Veronica corrected, barely restraining her anger. "Is he a collective farm pig or what? And secondly, my husband yesterday took my best friend Myla to the dentist. Is that a crime?" There was silence. Then Karina sighed strangely, as if quacking, and regretfully agreed, "No, what a crime it is when people close to each other help each other. Thank you, God. And that I inadvertently thought that stole divorced divorcee from the closest friend of a good man. Thank you for your vigilance. Bye." Veronica quickly ended the conversation and finally took a breath. "I am shocked by what is happening." In order to prevent Karina from gloating, she made up a lie about going to the dentist. However, it is true that Boris was secretly involved with her friend, who is practically like a sister to her. It is important for her to remain calm, as she knows firsthand the destructive power of jealousy. In the early years of their marriage, she would constantly suspect Boris of being unfaithful. Even the slightest glance towards another woman would drive her crazy. One incident at a friend's birthday party stands out in her memory. Under the influence of alcohol, Veronica falsely accused Boris of being too affectionate towards another woman, causing a scene and leaving in tears. The whole ordeal was embarrassing to remember. That night left a lasting impact on her. When they returned home, Boris didn't shout or threaten divorce. He calmly and firmly expressed his frustration. He pointed out how her jealousy spoils the lives of others, and how she ruined her friend's birthday celebration. Boris was tired of her baseless suspicions, and made it clear that he wouldn't tolerate another show like that. Nika wanted to justify herself, but couldn't bring herself to look at her husband. The kind and gentle Boris seemed like a stranger with a weary and extinguished look in his eyes. Veronica felt so ashamed that she vowed to never upset him with groundless suspicions again. To be fair, Boris had never given her a genuine reason to be jealous. He never hid his phone or passwords from her. It had been 2 years of living in bliss, like a fairy tale, until one day, everything came crashing down when the trust between Veronica and her husband was shattered. A bitter lump formed in her throat as she reached for her cell phone, dialing her mother-in-law's number with trembling hands. "Good evening, Anna Sergeyevna," Veronica greeted. "Is Borja nearby? I can't seem to reach him. Maybe his phone is dead." After a minute, her husband's calm voice finally came through the phone. "Hello," he said. "Everything's fine with my phone. What's wrong?" Veronica's voice softened as she spoke. "Nothing. I just missed you so much." Boris laughed incredulously, saying, "Really? I thought the entire apartment smelled terrible because of your sea creatures. Are you sure you're all right? Do you want me to come over?" His affectionate and slightly teasing tone brought warmth to Veronica's heart. No, stay with your parents. I actually wanted to talk to Milka, but I haven't been able to reach her for 3 days. I'm worried that something might have happened." Boris spoke in a nonchalant manner, dismissing her concerns. "There's nothing wrong with Milka. I saw her yesterday. She wanted to view the apartment she inherited from her grandmother." Confused, Veronica asked, "Why would she want to do that?" Boris genuinely replied, "To assess the situation, plan the necessary repairs, and calculate the costs. My company will handle all of it. Plus, you'll get a discount since she's your friend." Boris began providing details, igniting Nika's interest in other people's repairs like never before. However, after speaking with her husband, Veronica wasted no time in calling Milka to clear up their statements. "Hello, darling. It's been 3 days since I've heard from you," Veronica said anxiously. "Hi, and I was just about to call you," Milka replied happily. "I sent Seryoshka to my ex-husband's for the weekend, and I already miss him. Can you imagine? You don't know how to appreciate the joy of long-awaited freedom. I'm alone too." Boris went to visit his parents, Veronica explained. Mila didn't react to the message. As the friends continued to chat, Veronica cautiously initiated a secret interrogation. "I keep forgetting to ask, are you planning to sell your grandmother's apartment or rent it out to tenants?" Veronica inquired. "Rent it out, of course. Why would I sell it? Sergey will grow up, get married, and then there will already be an apartment in a good neighborhood. But I won't let anyone in until spring. We need to make the place look presentable. Boris assessed everything yesterday, and it's going to cost a fortune to renovate," Mila responded. "And you met with Boris yesterday?" Nika expressed surprise. "He didn't tell you. He probably assumed that I had already informed you," Mila laughed. Nika's inner voice quietly reminded her that she had been a bit slow with her report. Disgusted, she listened to her friend Mila talking excitedly about a cupcake recipe that her other friend Svetka had taught her. Mila asked Nika to write down the recipe, but Veronica offered to remember it instead. Nika felt calmer after chatting with her friend and decided to write down the recipe from memory. As she searched for a pen in her desk, Nika noticed a small branded bag from a jewelry store. Curious, she opened it to find a white velvet box containing gold earrings with a green stone. Although Nika wasn't a fan of colored stones, she instantly fell in love with the elegant jewelry. She wondered if Boris, her colleague, had bought the earrings as a gift and had consulted with Mila about it. Nika couldn't resist trying on the earrings and admired herself in the mirror. She wondered if the stone was a real emerald and questioned Boris's decision to spend so much money without any apparent reason. Nika playfully thought that maybe the earrings weren't meant for her, just like in a movie where a wife finds a gift meant for the mistress. She couldn't recall the name of the movie, but remembered that Veronica was planning to watch a beautiful and romantic film called Real Love. Feeling excited, Nika hurried to the kitchen to prepare a light dinner with a glass of wine. The following day, Boris returned home bearing gifts from his parents. Veronica was delighted to receive cherry jam and currant jam from her mother-in-law, and her mood had been wonderful since morning. With it being Saturday and no work to attend to, Veronica was in high spirits. She opened the window to let the crisp, frosty air into the room and was greeted by a dazzling winter's day outside. Inspired by her wife's enthusiasm, Nika started a thorough cleaning session, diligently scrubbing the stove, sink, and bathtub. Boris, catching on to her infectious energy, joined in with a rag and later the vacuum cleaner. Together, they swiftly made the entire apartment shine. After enjoying a delicious lunch prepared by Nika, Boris left for a meeting with a potential customer. Veronica couldn't help but feel a slight disappointment. She had been hoping for some kind of surprise or mysterious gesture from Boris, but nothing of the sort happened. She wondered to herself who planned surprises in broad daylight, especially after cleaning the toilet. Despite her disappointment, Nika decided to prepare a couple of gourmet dishes for dinner, looking forward to a magical evening. She happily hummed a song, feeling excited to show off to someone. Before Boris returned, she thought of sending her mom a picture of her new earrings. As Veronica hurriedly opened her desk drawer at the office, her heart sank. To her shock and dismay, there were no jewelry items in sight. No beautiful branded package, no earrings with a green stone, no velvet box. There was nothing. Instantly, the sun outside the window seemed to lose its brightness, and Nika found herself sinking onto the carpet. It felt like a firm hand had grasped her throat, making it difficult for her to breathe. The sound of the front door lock clicking signaled Boris's return. Veronica tried to calm herself down, reminding herself of the mistakes she had made in the heat of the moment. She knew she needed to sort everything out. Getting up from the floor, she went to prepare a meal for her husband, hoping to make amends. As they sat down for dinner, a heavy tension filled the air, making Veronica feel trapped. But Boris seemed oblivious to the gloomy atmosphere and his wife's changed mood. He enthusiastically asked about the beautifully set table, not waiting for an answer before launching into the details of a successful business deal he had secured. Veronica's excitement was mixed with a sense of uneasiness. She struggled to eat, her mind feeling cluttered and chaotic. Thoughts raced through her head, each one more troubling than the last. She wondered if Boris had truly been at a meeting, or if he had been with his mistress. Should she reach out to their friend Nika? Perhaps she had noticed something suspicious. But then, doubt crept in, asking whether Boris had taken Milka's earrings. Veronica was overwhelmed with questions, unsure how to confront her husband about her suspicions. Lost in her thoughts, Veronica absent-mindedly stared at her husband. He appeared attractive, but also seemed like a stranger with a false facade. Boris noticed her gaze and smiled warmly. "Darling, this fish is amazing," he exclaimed. "This client is a gold mine. Their house is more like a mansion. Our firm will make a fortune from the repairs. Oh, and by the way, we can finally trade in your old car for something decent. Do we have any tea?" Veronica was jolted back to reality. "Tea?" she repeated, slightly bewildered. "You had strawberries and cream earlier. Now you want baked goods too. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to bake scones for dinner." Boris was taken aback as he exclaimed, "I actually meant just a regular cookie or cupcake from the store. It's like you're baking nonstop." He couldn't resist teasing, "Do you think I don't work? Or are you suggesting that I don't know how to handle dough? What about those cinnamon pretzels? I can hardly remember their taste." Boris laughed amiably and added, "Nikush, when did I ever make you stay at the stove? I know you're busy with your lessons." Veronica couldn't help but retort, "I can see that. I may not be the best housewife, but you're no better." Boris questioned, "What do you mean?" Veronica silently screamed in her mind, "Where are my earrings?" But out loud, she said something completely different. "You haven't hung the shelf in Veryishka's room for 2 months." Boris muttered, feeling aggrieved, "You should have called a professional long ago. I don't have a drill, but I'll buy one and hang your shelf." Veronica waved away his words dismissively, saying, "Words, words, words. By the way, who said that quote?" Boris, confused and surprised, asked, "Is it from a movie?" Veronica grinned wryly and replied, "Oh no, neither Terminator nor Spider-Man said such things. It was Hamlet who said that, by Shakespeare." Boris, getting increasingly frustrated, snapped, "Do you take me for an idiot? Even Harry Potter didn't say anything like that." Veronica chuckled and teased, "Well, you're the philologist, and I have a degree in construction. Who reads Shakespeare these days? You should at least consider reading Russian classics from time to time, like Oblomov. It offers some interesting insights into your fellow couch potato," suggested the helpful assistant. The response was heated as Boris abruptly stood up from the table, exclaiming, "Screw you, sunshine." Shaken by his outburst, Veronica's husband swiftly grabbed his winter jacket from the coat rack, stormed out of the apartment, and slammed the door shut with a resounding bang. In a moment of regret, Veronica called her mother in Turkey, tears streaming down her face. She needed a comforting presence. "He truly was at a business meeting," reassured Irina Petrovna, her mother. "Varia and I had a video call with him at that exact time. Don't doubt it for a second." "Mama, you always defend Borenka," Nika, Veronica's sister, interjected. "But where did he take the earrings?" "They disappeared, I promise you." "Why would he take them?" replied her unperturbed mother. "Perhaps he simply put them in a safe place. I'm sorry, my dear, but you tend to meddle too much, and Boria knows it very well." "Why didn't he give me the earrings during dinner?" Nika sobbed, her adult daughter feeling the weight of her emotions. "You yourself mentioned that there was no occasion for a gift," Irina Petrovna explained. "Maybe he has a surprise planned for Valentine's Day. He had some extra money, so he may have bought them. Either ask your husband directly or stop torturing yourself. Jealousy can truly be a beast with green eyes." Nika, wiping away her tears, asked, "Who said that?" "It's a quote from Shakespeare, my dear philologist," her mother replied with a hint of disappointment. "It's a shame not to know. There you have it, Veronica, don't confuse me further." Boris arrived home to find his wife, Nika, in a much calmer state. However, she now felt overwhelmed with guilt. In an effort to make amends, Nika decided to bake cinnamon pretzels as a gesture of apology. As Boris walked into the kitchen, he placed a large, heavy box on the table. "It's a drill. With the money spent on it, we could have hired several handymen," Boris stated. "I'll hang the shelf tomorrow, if that's all right. I wouldn't want to disturb the neighbors on their Saturday night." Nika replied meekly, "Whatever you think is best, my love. You'll make some noise tomorrow. Perhaps we could have some tea and pretzels." The next day, Nika was awakened by the sound of a drill. Boris was hanging a shelf in their daughter's room. Wondering why he was up so early, Nika stretched and glanced at the clock. "Wow, it's already 11 o'clock. I slept so well. I guess I'll make some coffee now." Nika put on her robe and slipped her feet into her cozy slippers. The unpleasant noise from the walls had subsided. As she walked down the hallway, she overheard Boris talking on the phone. "I would love to, but only in the afternoon, okay?" Boris said, "I need to take care of the paperwork, or I'll soon be overwhelmed. How about 4 o'clock? "That works great. Well, kisses, see you later." Nika entered her daughter's room with a smile. "Good morning. Are you going to work on your day off again?" she asked. "I'll only be gone for an hour, Nikush. You won't even miss me. I'll go and clean up the tools, and while you admire the shelf." Boris tenderly kissed his wife on the nose and left. Once her husband was in the storeroom, Nika immediately grabbed his phone. She couldn't believe what she had just seen. Boris had received a call from Milka. How was this possible? When Boris returned to the room, Nika had made a decision. She would track down these traitors and catch them red-handed. Forgiveness was not an option for Nika when it came to betrayal and humiliation. she would confront her friend and file for divorce. As thoughts of a lonely old woman longing for her daughter flashed in her mind, Nika shook her head to push away the imaginary images. "Lovely shelf, my love," she said with a sweet smile. "Have you had breakfast yet?" At the agreed-upon time, Nika was already on high alert. When Boris bumped into her in the hallway, he looked surprised. "Where are you going?" he asked while buttoning his jacket. "To the store," Veronica replied, pulling out a gray, inconspicuous down jacket and putting on a mouse-colored cap. "We're almost out of shampoo and toothpaste." Boris offered to give her a ride, but Veronica quickly refused. "Are you kidding? It's just a few steps to the supermarket." The couple bid each other farewell, going their separate ways. Hiding discreetly behind a pole, Nika patiently waited for her husband's car to exit the parking lot before sprinting towards her old Mazda. Following her husband discreetly proved to be quite challenging. Nika couldn't afford to let his Toyota slip out of her sight, but she also had to be careful not to raise any suspicion. If Boris were to accidentally notice her bright red car, all her carefully crafted plans would be ruined. How foolish she had been to choose such a conspicuous vehicle. She thought of disguising herself and even sticking on a mustache, anything to avoid detection by Borka. Overwhelmed with anxiety, Nika barely managed to park her red Mazda in an empty space as her husband's car came to a halt near the subway station. For a brief moment, she feared she would give herself away. However, she regained her composure just in time. She didn't have to wait for long. Within a minute, Milka emerged from the underground passage, clad in a new short fur coat and fashionable high-heeled boots. Nika silently cursed her, wishing nothing but misfortune upon her deceitful rival. Mila, seemingly spotting Boris, flashed him an adoring smile and playfully made her way towards his car. The surveillance continued. Their next stop was a jewelry store. Did the earrings not meet Mila's expectations? Perhaps the princess had another jewelry demand. Nika's impatience grew as she waited for the couple to leave the store. Finally, the trader appeared on the store's porch, clutching an open velvet box. She couldn't tear her eyes away from it, her loyal accomplice. Bad luck struck Nika unexpectedly as she found herself blocked by a huge van, unable to see which way Boris's car had turned at the intersection. Meanwhile, her friend's ex-husband had taken her son for a few days, so Nika and her partner sought solace in Milkina's empty apartment. However, their moment of peace was short-lived. Winter days were already dark when the red Mazda parked outside Mila's house, casting a bright light against the curtains. From inside, Nika caught glimpses of vague silhouettes dancing, causing her excitement to turn into tears. She was left grappling with a vile and humiliating situation. Should she burst into the apartment, unleashing her anger on her friend and husband? Or should she gather the man's belongings, pack them in suitcases, and leave them in the hallway? These feeble attempts at dignity were no match for her fear and pain as she witnessed the betrayal with her own eyes. As the lights went out in Milky's bedroom, Nika's thoughts ceased to be rational. She leaped out of the car and raced up to the 4th floor, pounding frantically on the door. Mila opened the door, her face filled with fear, her hand clasping the robe she wore. "Nika, what's wrong?" she asked anxiously. "Is something happening with your daughter? Nika." Veronica forcefully pushed Ludmila aside and made her way directly to the bedroom, exclaiming, "Back off." Nika struggled to catch up with her friend, questioning, "Are you out of your mind?" "Shoes on in the bedroom. What's happening?" Determined, Veronica ominously replied, "Now you'll find out." She opened the bedroom door and was frozen in shock. A strange man sat on the bed, his shirt unbuttoned. It was a nightmare. Trying to hide her embarrassment, Veronica quickly maneuvered past Mila and hurriedly left the stranger's apartment. As she descended the stairs, an angry voice echoed, "You insane fool! Why did you come here?" In the car, Nika berated herself. The shame was unbearable. How could she have not realized that Boris's Toyota wasn't in Milka's yard? Had he miraculously shrunk it and put it in his pocket? It couldn't have been Mela. Who was it then? She regretted leaving her friend so abruptly and wished she had stayed to inquire why Mela had gone to the jewelry store with Boris. Did Mila know about her husband's affairs? Veronica burst into the living room at home, still fully dressed, breathless and sweaty, wearing an old down jacket and a backward, unflattering hat. Boris chuckled at the sight. An oil painting. Where have you been wandering, my love? I've been waiting for you. So how do you like it all? The room was bathed in a gentle, dim light, accompanied by beautiful soft music. A table set for two featured a bottle of Veronica's favorite wine, cheese, fruit, and an intriguing white velvet box. Feeling a sense of relief, Nikki discarded her outer clothes on the floor and approached the table. Borka, this is a surprise, isn't it? Thank you, my dear, she exclaimed, reaching for the velvet case. Opening it, she was astonished. What? White gold earrings with clear, sparkling stones? I'm going to freak out. They're different earrings, Veronica said gloomily. Of course they are, Boris affirmed cheerfully, oblivious to the confusion. Beautiful. Milka assured me that you would like them. Veronica was puzzled. What's she got to do with it? Boris animatedly explained. She picked them out. Listen, there's a whole story here. When we went to her grandmother's apartment, I mentioned wanting to buy you some jewelry, just because, no special occasion. Mila remembered that you'd been wanting earrings for a long time, so she helped me choose these nice ones with emeralds. I had planned to give them to you on Saturday. Veronica questioned, why didn't you? Listen to me, sweetheart. On Friday, while I was at my parents' house, Mela and I had a phone call, and I sent her a picture of my earrings. She was furious. She claimed that you dislike yellow gold and colored stones, saying they don't suit you. So we made a plan to go to the store together today and exchange the jewelry. Mila even chose the new ones herself. Look how well it turned out. Veronica whispered, her voice choked with tears. These are the most beautiful earrings in the world, she murmured, kissing her husband. Pour me some wine. But first, call Mila. She was so worried about whether you would like her choice or not. Comfort your dear friend, Boris suggested. I don't think my dear friend wants to listen to me right now, Nika replied without thinking. Boris studied her guilty face intently. Nikush, did you do something? Tell me. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. And with blushing cheeks, Veronica confessed all her sins to her husband. To her surprise, Boris didn't get angry. Instead, he looked at her with tenderness and sympathy. Silly girl, come here, he said, pulling Nika towards him and planting a kiss on the top of her head. What a horror you put yourself through for 3 days instead of simply asking me about the earrings. How hard could it have been? Othello in bows. Yes, jealousy is a terrible thing. It consumes a person entirely. A monster with green eyes, Veronica recalled. That's what my mother calls jealousy. That's what my mother-in-law said, Boris added. She didn't say that, Nika corrected him. Who did? Boris asked. Oh my God, Nika shook her head. It was Shakespeare. Boria, what have you been doing? It's shameful not to know.